today will be another one of those times as Aaron Rodgers reports for mandatory minicamp.
What am I supposed to do?
You are embarrassing yourself here, lads.
Excuse me. Thank you.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to Steel Sanctuary Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Rivero from SteelSanctuary.com. Trent King's with us, and we've got Tony Serino back. Tony, what's going on?
Hey, happy to be back. Couple things to talk about today. So
a little bit to talk about today.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers press conference. Man, he's smooth. We were talking just before we get on. You could tell he's done a few of these interviews because he didn't give the local media anything at all. Nothing to chew on today.
No, it was about the most ho-hum of press conferences. Based on what I heard, like, this is the most media that's ever been in the South Side, and probably since Ben retired, right? And yeah, he gave them they went digging. It wasn't that they didn't go digging, but it was about as ho-hum a press conference as you could have.
Yeah, they asked a few. Was that a wedding ring question?
Yeah.
What about your documentary? He even claimed he didn't even remember saying stuff on the documentary.
I did love that. It was like, did I make? Is there a documentary about me?
This is going to be different for us. These after game press conferences and stuff. Aaron's a whole different animal than what we're used to. Since Ben retired, anyway. I mean, Ben was,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Ben
exactly.
was.
It's been funny to hear all the people talk about, Aaron's all about himself, and you have to run the offense his way, and and it's like, boy, how we have forgotten 3 years ago. That was everything that was said about Ben Roethlisberger, right? I mean, that was the entire, he gets rid of the ball too quickly. You have to run his offense. Like, he can't move anymore. Like, this is, I don't know. For me as a Steelers fan, it's like, we're just going to replay those last 2-ish years of Ben, right?
Hopefully a little higher level, maybe. Hopefully.
I mean, it's amazing how long that narrative went too for such a long time throughout this whole process. But then here just very, very recently, you hear guys like James Jones start talking about how Aaron wasn't this me first guy in the locker room. And Lowry, now, Dean Lowry, what was that, yesterday, I think, or today, had said something very similar. And some former Packer teammates kind of coming to his defense. But what took him so long? It's just recent. I thought it was interesting.
Well, it's also been interesting that, if for a guy who has had this reputation of being this kind of dissenting voice in the locker room or kind of tears locker rooms apart, he has had guys who have gone with him, right? Like Randall Cobb continues to go wherever Alan Lazard and Devontae Adams last year, right? He does. Maybe it's just cult of personality, Aaron Rodgers. This is part of the divide, but. No, I do wonder, how much of the Aaron Rodgers is this locker room problem is more of a media-driven narrative than an actual, in the locker room problem. I do think he clashes with coaches, but as far as is he a bad teammate, I don't know do we have evidence that any of that is really true other than, the Mike Williams stuff last year and some of the stuff he did with the coaches. I will agree with that, but other than that, I can't really think of, locker room problem or bad teammate Aaron Rodgers.
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's the cult of personality thing. It's like there's people that dislike Aaron Rodgers just because he's Aaron Rodgers, and they're not going to they're going to go with any narrative they can get their hands on to make him look bad. So it's and not to get too political, but it gets to the vaccine stuff and all that, and people get very charged up about that stuff. And I said it, I think last podcast, the podcast before, we got to put the politics behind us. And this is the best quarterback we've had in 5 years. It's something to be excited about. I mean, forget about all the other stuff. Just let it go. This is sports. This is not politics.
100%.
Exciting.
Now, yeah, it is. And I do wish, look, I 100% agree with you on that, right? The last thing you want is to be before I cheer for you as a player, can I have your voting record for the last
exactly.
6 election cycles, please? Because I just need to make sure that we're both aligned on the politics of the day, right? This is supposed to be sports. This is a release from the real world, right?
Right.
Sports is a silly thing that we do where we get so dedicated to a thing that really matters nothing to our day-to-day lives, right? So it's supposed to be an escape from that. Now, I think there is the alternative to that, which is Aaron also puts himself out there in a lot of ways, right? It's not as though the whole I'm immunized thing he kind of like he kind of played into that by then going on other shows and then like, has become more of a voice. He goes on Rogan and talks about that kind of stuff. Right. So he's played into that as well. I mean, I would say, yes, there is this narrative against him, but then there's also like, he is outwardly kind of trying to get his message out there too, if that makes sense.
And if you're a guy who's a boring interview too, I mean, how much does the media want to be your friend? If you're not going to give them good interviews, they're not going to be your friend. They're not going to back you. They're more likely to make a story out of you than they are, I mean, Marshawn Lynch, I mean, was he really that bad of a guy? Never really heard too many terrible things about him, but he hated the media. He didn't talk to him, and they bashed him constantly. So, like, Rodgers gets a little bit of that treatment. He does bring some of it on himself for sure. But, like, I think he does get a little bit of the other side of that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't deny he brings some of it on his side. He likes to be coy. He likes to, send mixed messages, secrets. Yeah, he's definitely that type of guy, which gets that breeds the anger towards him because he's kind of tweaking people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, look, as far as I'm concerned, I could give two shits. He's a pretty good quarterback. I want to see him play. We have been through hell the last 5 years. From Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph and you name it, Trubisky, and again, this isn't Aaron Rodgers from 10 years ago, but it's miles better than we've had in a long time.
Are you more excited today than you were the day? I don't know if you remember how you felt last year, but there was that day that they traded for Fields, which meant we knew then that we were going to go into the season as fans with like this pseudo competition between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Are you more excited today for Rodgers, or were you more excited back then when they had both Russ and Fields going into training camp?
Well, I'm much more excited with Rodgers, 100%.
And you're not saying that just like retrospect, right? You're saying like at the time. Okay.
No, there was always that lingering thing in the back of my mind with both of those guys. Justin Fields had his drawbacks, and we didn't know, but Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. Maybe it's 70% of Aaron Rodgers, but it's still better than either one of those guys, in my opinion. I don't know how you felt, Trey.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think right now, this version of Aaron Rodgers, and I'm not somebody who likes quarterback camp controversy in the NFL. It's a horrible place to be because if you have two quarterbacks, you really have no quarterback. That's always the saying, right? So I'm glad that we have a place. And I think if you're Arthur Smith as well, how confusing was that to try to figure out which offense should you be installing? I mean, they're two totally different quarterbacks. So, like, I think this is going to really help Arthur Smith in year two. I think it helps, obviously, the team because he's a much better quarterback, like Dave said. It's the best quarterback we've had in 5 years. No question about it. So, like, if you're a Steeler fan and you think all these people are like, oh, we're not going to be any better than we were last year. I don't know how you make that claim. I just don't understand how you could possibly make that claim. This guy is way better than anything we've had, and we still had winning seasons. Right. You should be optimistic for at least a playoff win.
Unless he is all the way washed, right? I mean, unless, because Father Time's undefeated. We saw this at the end of Ben, like the end of Ben, not fun to watch. No. They did scrape by. They did get the 7 seed. They did do their classic, get absolutely boom roasted in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I think to me, there's two scenarios here. I think there's one in which Rodgers can go out and play well enough. I mean, I don't think he needs to be a superstar in this offense or in this team for this team to make the playoffs again, or even make a little bit of noise in the playoffs. Right? There's that version of it, which I think we're all kind of expecting. Then there is the other version where I think he could just be really bad and like, he doesn't move. This offense, I don't know that this offensive line is something that we're really counting on, right? Like I know we all really didn't like Dan Moore, but Dan Moore might be an upgrade over Broderick Jones. That is a wide open question.
Yes, it is.
And then defensively, I think there are some question marks about this defense, especially based on where they left off last year. And like, do we really believe that they got immediately better? I know that they did some things this offseason to get better. But I think there are enough open questions on this that I could see the bottom could fall out this year. Tomlin could have a losing season this year with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think it's out of the question. I think it's unlikely, but I don't think it's out of the question.
I mean, you are 100% right. I mean, there is a lot of questions still on this team. The offensive line is definitely a question.
Yep.
Even Fuatano on the right, we don't know who he is.
Right.
We have no idea. You got older players on defense, Darius Slay, Cam Hayward, even TJ Watt's getting up there. Minka dropped off a little bit the last couple of years. We have no idea what he's going to bring to the table. So, yeah, there's definitely questions going into the season. It's just, at least we're not worried about quarterback again. I mean, we talked ourselves into Russell Wilson, especially me and Dave, after talking about it for 14 episodes. We've kind of talked ourselves into, all right, Russ, he had, I don't know, this touchdown to interception ratio was really good in Denver, even though everyone was telling us that that's an overrated stat and he wasn't really that good. And we just kind of talked ourselves into it. Russ is going to be fine. And then 3 games into his tenure in Pittsburgh, I get it now. This is why nobody liked Russ in Denver. It's the moon ball or nothing. So
right. Yeah, but
right.
but can I devil's advocate this though? Because I will say, like with Rodgers, especially if you look at what he did last year, it's a lot of short drop and get rid of the ball, right? I mean, we're gonna go back to like that old Ben of like just wants to get rid of the ball quickly and does not want to take sacks. So I don't know that we're gonna get this like I don't know that we're gonna get like a significantly better quarterback than what we got last year from either Russ or Fields. I just think hopefully it's more consistent. And if it works, I think the ceiling is higher. But I still think Rodgers is a pretty limited player at this point in his career. And I think if guys like DK and Calvin and Freiermuth and all that can't get open quickly, again, I do think that there's a world here where we're looking at Rodgers and we're like, yo, what was Tomlin thinking? Like, doing this? Like, what are we doing? This is awful.
Yeah, I think the one thing that you talk about with the quick game that helps the bad offensive line though.
It does,
and that's what they tried to do in the last 2 years, really, of Ben Roethlisberger, is they tried the quick game. And he was getting the ball out in under 3 seconds, and I forget the stat. I think Aaron averaged 2.64 or something like that last year. That will help a struggling offensive line, but you do definitely need the receivers that can do it. DK, I think, is that guy. I know he didn't get utilized as much in that type of a space in Seattle, but a big physical guy like him, he's going to get open. He's going to present a target no matter what you do. I think Pat can get open pretty quickly as a tight end, even though he's limited athletically. Beyond that, though,
same old song and dance. It's one wide receiver, Freiermuth, and then
you guys keep forgetting. The Robert Woods erasure on this show is unacceptable. Unbelievable, you guys.
I'm not buying the Bobby Trees. I'm not buying it.
No, look, I think, you go back to like Ben wanted to get rid of the ball quickly. He had Deontay that year. And I think was that not Deontay's best year? I'd have to look back statistically. And see
I think it was, actually.
I think so.
It was. And he can, you talk about a guy who can win and win quickly. That was Deontay Johnson's whole game. I agree with you that I think DK, especially on those quick slants, can be an option. But man, wide receiver 2 is a problem. Like, I don't know. First of all, I don't even know who they're going to play at wide receiver 2. I would imagine it's going to be Calvin. But then again, there's all these rumors that they're going to trade for Jonnu Smith. They're going to trade for, if you guys heard the Kyle Pitts thing now.
Yep.
If they trade for Kyle Pitts, I will laugh hysterically. That would be one of the. I would have to get a Kyle Pitts jersey just for the irony of it.
I posed this question last night. They have some kooky, they want a big wide receiver 2 that can block. Are they going to put Kyle Pitts or Jonnu Smith on the outside?
I'm so intrigued by what this offense is going to look like this year because it was Connor Hayward of all people pointed out, like, don't we already kind of have that tight?
Yep.
Like, you already have that tight end at home. You don't need another one. So I'm with him on that. But then again, there's all these reports now. We're finally getting the reporting about what the Steelers knew and when and all this. And there was a report today that Arthur Smith's been working on an Aaron Rodgers offense for like 2 months now because he's known for 2 months this is happening, right? Mm-hmm. So now clearly, I don't think Omar Khan's like, I just want to run a lot of like 13 personnel or something. So why all of a sudden is like getting another tight end so important, especially after Donald Parham or whatever tore his Achilles? Like, this is a real, like, they are all in on Kyle Pitts or Jonnu Smith. Or like, they got it. Wide receiver 2, we'll think about that. But getting another tight end, I'm really intrigued to understand, like, what does that even look like? Because, are we going to see like an Aaron Rodgers under the gun, play action, 12 personnel? Like, is that really the style they're going to bring in? I have a hard time believing that.
I get a funny feeling they're going to line him up wide as a wide receiver and let them,
Pitts or Freiermuth?
Pitts or Jonnu Smith, whoever they trade for.
Okay. Yeah.
And then try to run some kind of funky offense that way. And we know those guys can block.
Right. You could use them in line. Yeah, that's the goal.
So I'm confused by it. You need a wide receiver too, so desperately, and we're spending all this time on tight ends. I'm confused.
Okay,
I've been confused for 2 years.
I think they're trying to add as many weapons as humanly possible at any position.
Out of anywhere, any
place. I really do. I think if they could get their hands on Johnny or Kyle Pitts, they're still going to be using them as tight ends, and they're waiting on the cut down. And I think I half wonder. I mean, is Dontavian Wicks super drastically different than Deontay Johnson? He's a win at a very quick rate type of receiver and a very, very possible cut candidate in Green Bay. And then Omar is still probably working the phone to say, like, who's the disgruntled wide receiver who wants out of town? Like, is a guy going to come up in that conversation? Is it worth trading for, somebody who's really not much of an upgrade when we got Aaron Rodgers in the building, or should we hold out and see if somebody else comes along?
Yeah. I do. Okay, so here's my big thing, though, because someone put in this chat, and whoever Big Pun is, you and I are mortal enemies, sir. How dare you? This whole 1 year window to go all into the Super Bowl. No. I do want to say, because we talked about this last time I was on, but I could not. We can swear on this show, right?
Yes, you can.
I couldn't give a shit about what the Steelers do in 2025. I don't care. There's a lost year, whatever. Like, Rodgers makes the playoffs, great. They go 5-12. All in on 26, quarterback in 26. That's the goal.
Please.
Eyes on the prize.
Please.
Quarterback in 26, please. And it seems like they have the draft capital. So one thing I don't want the Steelers to do this offseason is to do anything that would really hurt that. I've heard the Terry McLaurin for a first-round pick. If the Steelers trade their 2026 first-round pick for a wide receiver, I'm going to lose the last little bit that I got left up here. Okay? That's going to drive me absolutely nuts. I do like, though, Trent, what you're talking about with the playmaker thing of they just want to bring someone in as a playmaker. I actually could buy that, because if you think about it, who in the NFL has Omar Khan not called about at wide receiver over the last 2 seasons, right? I mean, this is off-season 2 that we're doing this. He made the DK thing happen. You have to imagine he's made so many phone calls about wide receivers. He has a pretty good sense of who's available and who's not. So, next up, I can buy this, which would be okay, I'm not going to get a wide receiver, or not going to get the wide receiver I want. Let me try tight end.
Yeah. I mean, I think that might what we'd be coming down to is he's just anything. And then on cut down day, maybe they're hoping to get lucky that somebody gets cut and they can snag somebody.
I keep saying this. I still think there's some serious optimism within that organization about Roman Wilson developing as a Z. I don't like it this year. I don't like it this year, but I think there's got to be. You didn't attack the position at all, knowing you were trading George Pickens. There has to be some level of optimism around that kid.
I don't know. Gosh. I don't know, Trent. I just think they do the wide receiver position by the seat of their pants.
He also seems so much better as a slot than a Z.
They're all slots, right? Austin, Woods, they're all better suited to the slot.
Yes. I agree. Although I think Austin did play some outside receiver in college.
He did.
I think
he's got to be the guy.
Mostly on the outside, didn't he?
I believe that's right. Yeah.
He has
the body type of someone who should play inside. You don't want him on the outside, right?
Right.
Those teams are going to play press, although Z kind of plays off line of scrimmage, so you're not going to face true press, but whatever.
Yeah. He's the favorite right now, I would say, to be the second outside receiver.
No, Robert Woods is the favorite. Robert Woods, yes. I'm almost positive. I would love. It's too bad. There's so much you can gamble on sports these days. This is the one niche that I need. I need to gamble on Robert Woods starting outside receiver day one for the Steelers.
We talked about it.
You need an edge against Vegas, and I feel like I have the edge on this one.
Jesus, we talked about this last night. From Allen Robinson to Van Jefferson to Robert Woods, this is historically comical Wide receiver, it's just I'm at the end of my rope with it.
I just can't. And look, Rodgers talked about it today. Like he wanted to be here, historic franchise. Loves Mike Tomlin, yada yada. And look, he said all the right things in the press conference.
He did.
Sure.
I do wonder though, like it's really interesting to me that he wants to play in this offense. Like, what is this offense even going to be? Like, what? It just doesn't feel like it suits what he wants to do, right? Guys who can win quick, spread the field. He can, he can see the picture and all that. Just seems like this is the antithesis of what the Steelers are going to run. And you have to imagine that Arthur Smith isn't just going to like shove his like play action wide zone. Just play Skoranek,
Bob Quinn is
something to be said for that.
Huge Skoranek fan. He drives me crazy. Let's be honest. He didn't have many options. I don't know if it's what does he see in the Steelers offense? It's like it was us or the Giants. Those were his two options. And the Giants were going to draft a quarterback, I think, and I think he saw the writing on the wall on that one. And he said it today. He liked Tomlin better. Tomlin was the difference.
Well, he could have retired too, because like if he comes here and it all falls apart, like who? Okay, here's an interesting question: who has a bigger chance to like screw up their legacy, Mike Tomlin or Aaron Rodgers this year?
Oh. Bob's convinced that if he screws up with Aaron Rodgers, it's Mike Tomlin.
It's a huge black eye on Tomlin to like let him play through, like let him do this whole thing, bring him in, and then he just is terrible. Because part of this, and I thought Aaron did a really good thing by talking to the locker room. Look, it's one thing for Tomlin to do all this, and clearly guys on the team did not buy into the idea that Rodgers played this game all offseason, right? Hayward talked about it. I'm forgetting the other guys have like made mention of the fact, like, hey,
Deshaun Elliott kind of called him out.
Deshaun Elliott, like you would be here. Well, Deshaun Elliott one of my favorite players. But like, don't you think like this is a big black eye on Tomlin if this doesn't work?
Yeah.
Yeah, because apparently he's the driving force behind this, right? He was the one that wanted Rodgers, from everything we've read, that this was his guy, and he was willing to wait as long as it took. And it took a while. It took a while.
I definitely agree. I think it's got to be Tomlin. I mean, Aaron Rodgers can at least use the excuse he's 41 years old at the tail end of his career here. I mean, Tomlin, like he's talked about every year, he's ranked top 3-ish in coaches in the NFL by just about every major outlet. If he bombs with Aaron Rodgers, a guy he was begging for, like that's a tough one to take on the chin right there if you're Mike Tomlin.
I agree, because to me it feels like Tomlin has this is almost a lost year for even Tomlin, because he's going to get the green light to draft a quarterback in 26, right? So for like he's not getting no matter how bad the Steelers are this year. I think there's zero chance Tomlin could ever get fired from this. But it does make the question about like the next quarterback thing. Like how much of a leash does Tomlin have with the next quarterback? Does he get the normal, like, all right, you're going to have 2 or 3 years to kind of play this out? Or is Rooney going to be like, hey, man, like this better work quick, or we may have to do something here?
I don't know if Rooney's got the stones for that, but he should. That's what he should be thinking. What's worse for the Steelers? Like a disastrous season, or get to the playoffs and then a disastrous wild card blowout? I think it's the wild card blowout again. If you get into the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers and the team's playing semi-well, and they get throttled again, that looks worse. If Aaron Rodgers gets hurt or he just doesn't have it anymore and they go 6-10, that's one thing. But if he's good or decent, they make the playoffs, and the defense gives up 40 points again, that's a bigger blow to Mike Tomlin's legacy, I think, than anything else.
You got to talk about blowing the team up at that point. I think if you get blown out again in the playoffs, you got to start moving off some of these big name guys, Minka, TJ, Cam. They're not getting it done, and you're going into a rebuild.
I think you got to move
full
off
rebuild.
The defense.
I agree.
They're kind of in a rebuild right now. They're kind of been in a rebuild. They just haven't admitted it, right? I mean, that I think is the frustration of a lot of Steeler fans, which is you're in a rebuild. Like you've been in a rebuild really since Ben had the elbow injury, but truly since Ben retired. Like this has been a rebuild project, but they haven't admitted they're in a rebuild. And so they just kind of keep trying to string it along every year. Well, okay, Kenny didn't work out. Let's try Russ. And okay, that didn't work out. Let's try Aaron Rodgers. Okay, that's, at least, like I said last time, like at least for me, I actually see like I can finally see the light at the end of the tunnel, the rebuild ends when you find the next great quarterback. All the problems we have today of like who's going to play cornerback too, like the Bills fans, Chiefs fans, Bengals fans, like they don't really talk about like, oh, this sucks that we're going to play Darius Slay at outside. Like, no, we have Joe Burrow. I think we'll be okay. Yeah. We have Pat Mahomes will be okay, right? So that's going to be the answer. And to me, that comes down to like, can this team find a quarterback in the 26th class? So to answer your question, what's worse? I think it all comes down to, does Tomlin at any point, if this blows up in his face, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if this team has a real bad losing season because it puts them in even more prime position to get that quarterback in 26. But it's about how do the players receive that, right? You kind of did this song and dance all season or all off season about getting Aaron Rodgers, and we're going to, we have no timeline on signing this guy or whatever, right? You let him do this whole thing, and he comes in at minicamp, and like there's no competition whatsoever. If that blows up and he loses the locker room, that's a horrible. That to me is the horrible. The horrible.
All right, let me throw this scenario at you. Say Aaron Rodgers goes on a little run, gets the AFC title game.
Yeah.
We're seeing Aaron Rodgers again in next year, and they might not draft a quarterback.
No, they'll draft a quarterback.
I'd still draft.
I don't know.
No,
Tomlin's this close to a Super Bowl. There's a wide receiver that he likes, or there's something, and they think they can win it the next year.
I would be shocked. I would be shocked if they didn't draft a quarterback in 26.
I agree. Even if you bring Aaron back, you're still drafting a quarterback, and then I think this organization is also arrogant enough that they think they can find a wide receiver in any round. So, like, do they think they need to draft one in the first round? We could have drafted one in the first round this year, and we chose to go defensive line.
Yeah.
So I think this organization is just arrogant enough. They think they can find that receiver anywhere. And I agree with Tony's point that he made a minute ago. Like, we've been in a rebuild. I said last year I felt like we were in a rebuild. This year, it's clearly we're in a rebuild. But you finally see Omar Khan's plan in the rebuild by stockpiling all of these picks going into next year. You got 12 picks right now, I think, going into next year. They're going to be able to use some of that to also trade up. So even if you get the quarterback wherever we end up drafting, if we're in the top 15, do you really need to trade up for one of these? There's 6 guys that are probably going to go in the first round as of where we sit today. You're not trading up to go get a guy. You're going to get a guy. He's going to fall in your lap.
Yeah. Do you want
you could pack in a class this?
You want your guy. You don't care if it's the last guy as long as it's your guy.
Yeah.
But you got 3 third-round picks. You could trade up for a wide receiver in round 2.
Yeah.
Just go get your guy in round 2.
You brought up arrogance. That's my fear. Because if Tomlin gets a little taste and this really goes well, he's arrogant enough to think, well, we'll draft a quarterback at 27. Let's do this, and then we'll trade our first-round pick for a wide receiver or an offensive lineman. We'll get a left tackle. We'll trade for a left tackle, and then we can win a Super Bowl. The arrogance and the lack of awareness of this team, and maybe it comes from Mike Tomlin, maybe it doesn't, but
the arrogance, in my opinion, is always thinking that you can always compete, and then, oh, don't worry, we'll just draft a quarterback in 26 because like whatever, we accumulated all this. Like there is the part of this in 26 where we just say they're going to draft one, they're going to trade up and get one, but every other team in the NFL now knows that, right? Everybody knows that it is no secret what's going to happen in the 2026 draft class. So you look at all the other compensations that have been given out to trade up in the draft. This team has to pay the quarterback premium now because everyone knows it's not a question of if they're going to trade. They're going to be calling every team trying to get up in the class. They're going to have to give like a king's ransom to whoever they go up to, because every team's going to know, like, yeah, you're going to go out and try to draft your franchise, and that's worth something more than just trading up for a random wide receiver and all of that. And so I think the real arrogance of this team is to not admit where you are, admit you are not going to win a Super Bowl, right? So you want to draft a quarterback in 26. Great. There's this great class. You're trying to set yourself up for that. Ride it out with Mason Rudolph. We're like, I get the fan base and all that's not going to love it. And, people talk about like tanking doesn't work in the NFL or whatever, which I think is a silly point, but we can talk about that later. No, set yourself up. If that's the true plan, Why are we doing this charade of like, oh, I think Aaron Rodgers could? We all know the Steelers are not winning a Super Bowl in 26 or 25. It would be cute if they won a playoff game, but I don't think that's possible. So I think that's the real arrogance of this organization, is to try and like, it's to have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah, I think they really believe they could be super competitive. I think they think they're going to be right in the mix for a Super Bowl. I don't believe it. I know you don't believe it either, but Tomlin thinks Aaron Rodgers, he could take Aaron Rodgers to the Super Bowl. I guarantee you he does. It's the way they operate. I mean, you lost Ben Roethlisberger one year in the second game of the season, and you traded your first-round pick away that year to get a safety because you thought you could still win.
That was a play for the future, right? But that was not. They weren't trading away for a guy for a 1 year rental. They were getting.
It wasn't a rental, but
yeah.
But I think that trade they had in mind. We'll just make the defense great. Maybe Ben will come back at some point. Right. Or maybe we could just do it with, Mason, and we'll be fine. They just worry me. And to Trent's point about accumulating the picks, was that a plan or was that just a happenstance? They had about 6 or 7 free agents. They had no interest in re-signing.
Yeah. And
they all happened to get paid. The Titans paid Dan Moore so much that they get a 3rd round pick for it. That's more like, I don't know if this was so much a rebuild strategy or it's just the way it kind of worked out.
No, is it a long-term strategy? No, this team does not have a long-term strategy. I mean, this is the longest-term strategy we've seen this team have, right? Like, this is it. What we're watching them do in 25, because remember, we went into this offseason talking about, like, they have $80 million in cap space. They could spend better on anything. It's like, what did they get? 34-year-old Darius Slay and 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. Like, that's our big free offseason acquisitions. Woohoo! No, but, like, what they really did with that money is they kind of said, okay, we're going to do nothing with that money, really. We're just going to accumulate draft picks and try to trade up in 26. So I don't know that this team has like a long-term vision. This is the longest term vision we've seen them have.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, all right, getting back to Aaron Rodgers. What do you think that the best case scenario is? How far can this team go with Aaron Rodgers?
Have you guys already done your? Oh, I think I saw this. I know you guys' predictions. Actually, I'm just remembering it now.
We did it with, Aaron Rodgers versus Mason.
Yeah. So you were at 10, I think. You were like 6 with Mason, by the way, which
Mason
I thought
Rudolph,
was
6.
Hilarious. 6 wins with Mason Rudolph.
Bro, I was dead ass serious. This team's not winning any games with Mason Rudolph.
They almost won a playoff game with Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, did they really?
Game. Did they really? Not really. But like in a very Tomlin-esque way, they could have. All they needed was one fluky turnover in the 4th quarter, and that game I think is going to overtime. And then who knows? Best case scenario with Aaron Rodgers, 12. Is 12 too high?
With the schedule, I think it's within reason.
Possible. I think I picked 11 with Aaron on the team in a playoff. I think he can win a playoff game if you hit the right team. If you win 11 or 12 games, that's enough to win our division. You can possibly win a playoff game.
They just can't. The problem is they can't win the division, right? I mean, I just think the problem for the Steelers right now is that they are in the hardest division in the hardest conference.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they're at best the 3rd best team. Right? I mean, is there any world where you guys think that they're forget the records? Are they a better football team than the Baltimore Ravens at the end of the year?
No.
Are they a better team than the Cincinnati Bengals at the end of the year?
I say yes, because I do not believe in Cincinnati's defense. That team's going to give up every point you want to get.
Yeah, but they're going to score.
I mean, they have to, though. At some point, if you're one Joe Burrow injury away from that team being maybe a 2-win team.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if Joe Burrow gets hurt, they're in big trouble.
But even with him, I mean, they just have this same roster last year? They weren't better. They've gotten worse.
Hey.
No.
Did they get worse?
I mean, the Bengals have gotten significantly worse on defense, in my opinion. And they were already bad. They were historically bad last year, and they did not replace a lot of these guys with anything better than what they already had. And Hendrickson is even going to be there. Like, is he ever going to sign this contract? Shamar Stewart.
Very strange one. I do
Smart
think,
Stewart,
though-
he's still not signed his rookie contract.
That's
Like,
crazy.
that
That's
team has some
crazy.
serious organizational problems right now.
Yeah. But
But
I do think strength on strength. I think the Bengals offense is better. The best version of the Bengals offense is better than the best version of the Steelers defense right now, in my opinion.
by a good margin. By a good margin.
Because when I did my little show last year, like I started to say this, I just don't believe in the Steeler defense right now. Like I just don't believe that they're ever going to I don't think right now that they could be a top 5 unit again. I think there are times when they could look like a top 5 unit when they play like the Falcons or the Broncos or whatever. But like when it's no wonder that once this team went up against that stretch at the end of the year, those last 5 games, like, yeah, Russ didn't play well, but like also the defense didn't play well in those games. And like you can make an argument that the defense was just as big a reason they lost any of those football games as like
100%.
as Russ or the offense playing poorly.
They were horrendous against Kansas City. Like they didn't even know, it's like they had never seen Kansas City's offense before ever.
Right.
It was bad.
And the bad part is, I mean, the defense is predicated on pressure. And the problem is that when 4 guys don't get home, they don't bring 5. They don't bring 6. Right. They certainly don't bring, I mean, there's no zero blitz. There's no blitz, period. And I think that's a huge part of what they're lacking. And I've made this point several times. They're playing a soft-ass Tampa 2 with TJ and Alex as the ends. And they had Benton and Hayward as the 4-3 front. Bring a guy off the edge. Peyton Wilson is made to be a blitzer. He's great in coverage, but my God, put him in the fucking slot and let him blitz.
Yeah. Can I make a bold prediction about this defense this year?
Go ahead.
Yes.
If Aaron Rodgers gets this offense averaging at least 24 points a game, Mike Tomlin's going to change this defense back to being a little bit more aggressive and attacking. If he feels like the offense can score, right now they're doing this bend but don't break, hold them to 3 points, and that's all we care about. They will give up 5,000 yards in a game as long as they get field goals. That's all he cares about. If the offense can score touchdowns and he believes the offense can score touchdowns, he really, I think he'll open the defense back up. That's when we've seen all this fall apart with the defense. We quit blitzing as long as we've not had a quarterback and score points.
He did that. Yeah, no, you're right about that. Like the Killer Bee offense was a more aggressive, like Keith Butler fire blitz style defense for sure. I do think though one of the things that Tomlin likes about Aaron Rodgers. Do you know who the most safe quarterback in NFL history is? Like the person who's thrown the least interceptions by attempts in NFL history is
Aaron Rodgers by a mile.
It's not even close. Yeah, exactly.
That's Tomlin's dream. That's Tomlin's dream right there.
Yeah.
Right. But the thing that you have to like as a Steeler fan is he's done that without being like super safe though. Like I wouldn't say that Aaron Rodgers is out there, not trying to fit it in between windows, not throwing over the middle of the field. Like, all the things that piss us off about the Steeler offense, like just take a chance one time, please. Like throw over the middle. Try to fit it in between a safety and a linebacker. Those are things that Rodgers has done, is doing, I think will continue to do, but is also safe with the ball, which I think is like the most optimistic outlook you can have, which is Tomlin doesn't have to dial everything back to get what he wants out of this offense, which is do not screw it up for my defense.
Yeah.
That's what it all comes down to. And we did an episode about the Killer Bees a couple of things ago, and I watched some of the games to refresh my memory. And I think Mike Tomlin's scarred over that whole era because, like Trent brought it up, there was a ton of turnovers by that team. The defense gave up some big play. I don't think he ever wants to go back to that type of football. I hope you're right, Trent.
You guys should do a rewatch of the Broncos-Steelers game that year. Remember the one where Xavier Grimble fumbled going into the end zone?
Yes.
The Steelers. That was the one where Ben turned it over at the goal line, like threw it to a D lineman. He like said AB didn't run deep enough or whatever on his route. That would be a great rewatch.
That they turned over the ball a lot. We were looking at it. I don't think there was one playoff game that didn't turn the ball over at least once in that whole Killer Bee run. It was brutal. And I think Tomlin's scarred by that. He doesn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. So what he should be scarred by, and frankly, the moment I became a Tomlin critic instead of a Tomlin apologist, the Saints game where he faked the fucking punt inside his own 40 with like 3 minutes left to go. I'm a defensive coach. I love my defense. You set it up where Drew Brees had a short field to kick a field goal and win the game, and Ben got the ball back with a minute to go. And I think he threw an interception, or Juju fumbled or something like that. Yeah, Juju fumbled. I mean, why? I don't get it. Well, Drew Brees would have marched down the field. Okay, maybe you would have been able to hold him time-wise. I mean, bottom line is you don't set the guy up in field goal range to win the game. I mean, it made no sense.
He's
I
made
feel
some
like the
strange
Steelers did that
decisions
last year too. Did they not like fake a punt in a really weird spot? Was that last
Yes.
year?
Yes.
Inside their own 20, I think, or inside the opponent's 20, and Pierre dropped that ball wide open.
Oh, that's
Oh, that was against
That's
that was the
right.
Broncos game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Jesus.
Yeah.
He makes some strange decisions.
It's sometimes, yeah, exactly. For a guy who's so conservative, sometimes you're like, Tomlin, what was that?
We're gonna fake punt.
Go ahead.
We're gonna fake punt to a guy who we've cut 3 times from the roster, and is a cornerback by trade.
Right.
You can't make this stuff up.
Don't forget the fake field
Hey,
goal
he probably
where
caught it
Boz
every time
got
in
knocked out
practice.
with a concussion.
What was it, Bob?
The fake field goal with Boswell when he got knocked out by the concussion against the Browns.
The Browns game.
Jeez.
That's right. Going back to that Saints game, by the way, you guys probably remember this, but Roosevelt Nix gave the first down sign right after that. It was very obvious he missed it by like 4 yards, but
Yep.
Nix
Yeah.
didn't realize it. He's like, first down. It's a great moment.
Yeah.
Great moment.
Yeah.
Just we could do a million episodes on Tomlin's freaking questionable decisions in game. It's maddening.
You guys should do like a top, because this is the time of year where you have time to kill. You guys should do like a top 10 best challenges Mike Tomlin's ever done in his career.
His challenge.
What are your favorite challenges that he's done?
He's got some beauties. I'd have to go back. There's so many. I've lost my mind at least a dozen times over his challenges. At least ones he doesn't throw when he should.
They're worse. Yeah, those are even worse.
And the ones he does throw, which make no sense whatsoever. It's just.
Mm-hmm. And then
Aaron Rodgers,
another one, you
buckle
could do another one like late game timeout usage or end of half timeout usage. Your top 10 game management.
Oh my god, we got content for the next 3 summers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Holy crap! It's
so confusing what he does to at the end of the. I mean, hey, it's 2nd and 9, but I got a good quarterback I'm facing. I'll call the timeout and give them an extra timeout to move the ball. Yeah, hey, 3rd and long, okay, call the timeout. But when you're calling them on 1st and 2nd, just anticipating, hey, you just gave him an extra play to get organized. I mean, I'd rather see. Granted, our quarterbacks haven't been great the last couple of years, but I'd rather see him have 30 less seconds to play with and guarantee we got the ball back.
Yeah.
right.
So sick of timeout. Oh, they get the first down. Now they're kicking a field goal. What the
Life as a Steeler fan is not easy. It's not easy. Let's transition to TJ Watt contract because I wanted to talk a little bit about this. It's mandatory minicamp and he is not attending. And Steelers Twitter universe lost their minds. I don't think it's a big deal. I don't. My only point is, why are they doing this to TJ Watt? Why are we driving? It's one of two things. I've been thinking about this a lot today. Either they're worried about his decline, or his agent's making some kind of, outrageous contract demands, $45 million a year or something crazy like that. Because if they're haggling between 38 and 40 million, this is ridiculous. It's TJ Watt.
They're gonna hag. I mean, look, TJ didn't sign this deal until like the end of training camp, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
3 days before the season started.
Yeah.
The hold-in thing and all that.
You probably have to set the over/under on signing this contract around the same time, right?
Yeah.
Just because,
guess.
that's how these things go now.
Yeah.
Unless they meet every demand. I mean, I don't begrudge him missing mandatory minicamp. I don't know how much. Look, defensive and offense, defensive guys, offensive linemen. I mean, the corners, the safeties, maybe the linebackers who are going to drop into coverage. Okay, fine. But this is football in shorts. What the hell are you going to do? Lift weights? I mean,
TJ's been here forever. He knows the defense backwards and forwards. He's not really missing anything.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big deal. Although, I don't know if you guys saw Adam Crowley's tweet this morning, which really touched off a firestorm, where he was like, hey, all those people who said Aaron Rodgers had to be a mandatory minicamp or he was going to lose the locker room, lose the team. And he came out with the, hey, keep that same energy for TJ. And people blew up and lost their minds.
Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a big deal. I mean, if you make a list of guys who do not need to be there right now, he's at the top of the list.
Yeah,
I mean, really,
one too.
Yeah, he's not getting any work out of this. Like, it's fine. Let Jack Sawyer run that role. Let Nick Herbig run that role. Let those guys get some work in this defense, and the contract will get done when it gets done. I don't think it's in jeopardy.
No, this contract's going to get done. Like, we can argue about whether or not it should get done, because I think there is an interesting argument to be made, especially as we talked about, right? Is this team in a rebuild or not? There's an argument to be made about, like, should you be paying a 30-plus-year-old edge rusher who is really a one-move speed rush guy $40 million at the end of his deal? What they're probably going to argue about is, like, when the out is in this contract. Like, how much of this money is going to be upfront versus spread out. That's probably going to be the majority of the negotiation there, because look, I love TJ, and you hate to be the guy who's like, oh, they need to get him off the team because he's past his prime or whatever. TJ is kind of past his prime at this point. He's a kind of one-note edge rusher at this. He always has been. I know they talk about moving him around more this offseason. I feel like we hear that every single offseason, though. And so a team that's going to kind of go into the next 3 to 5 years with a rookie or a guy on a rookie contract, like, by the end of that run, TJ is going to be what, 36, 35 or whatever it is. I don't know. There's maybe an argument to be made about not paying him that money. The guy who should have got a bunch of shit about OTAs, by the way, DK Metcalf.
Yes.
DK. Hey, bud. New team. Where you at? Hello.
Hey, Tony, so I floated, before we get to Big Pun's point here, which is an interesting one. So last night I floated a crazy idea. What if we just blew up the market and said, TJ, we're going to give you 2 years, $100 million guaranteed. So you're out after 2 years. You don't have to pay a quarterback the next 2 years, and you fuck up the market for Micah Parsons.
And Trey Hendrickson. You should have done that before. I love the idea. You should have done it before Myles Garrett signed his. That would have been the ultimate FU.
Because the Browns did it to us pretty much by signing him to that crazy $40 million a year contract.
Right. The other problem is, like, so you reap what you sow, right? You also screwed up for the next good edge rusher you get, right? So it's like,
3 years down the line, we want to sign one, and you screw.
I love anything that this team can do to screw with the Bengals, though, because as Trent was saying earlier, like, that is, look, they have a lot of talent on that team, but you want to talk about organizational dysfunction? Yeah, the Bengals have it. I mean, they are the gold standard of organizational dysfunction.
And for our man Big Pun here, the whole honorable, dishonorable thing. All right, so here's what I'll tell you. Okay, you were siding with the billionaires over the millionaires here, and I will tell you this: if TJ broke his leg and his career was over, and he had 3 years left on his deal, they'd cut him without even thinking about it.
Right.
So that whole honorable, dishonorable thing, I signed a contract. Teams don't give a fuck you signed a contract. If you can't play, you're cut. You lose the money. The only thing you get, your guaranteed money. It's the nature of football. I get it. It has to be that way. So
right. I could flip his comment right around on him right now and say, if the team was honorable, they should have paid him when he deserved that money last year. He outplayed his current contract. Pay him more money.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. Yep. And they kind of hardballed him the last time. He didn't get, top of the market money that he could have gotten. He kind of told his agent to just sign and let's go. Towards the end, when he got close to the season, if my memory serves me correct.
The highest paid Steeler ever, though.
Yeah. So do you give any credence to the paying DK big money when he hasn't even played it down on the team, and that having an effect on players that are here now, and maybe TJ would have been a little less combative if they didn't give DK this big contract? Because, and people made the point on Twitter today, and they're right, that DK doesn't come here unless they pay him.
Right.
probably.
Sure.
So they had to pay him. But still, the guy hasn't played it down, and he becomes top of the market at his position without – there was no contract negotiation. It was just given to him. And now TJ, who's been here for what, 10 years, has got to, for the second time in his career, scrape and claw for every penny. The Steelers are putting him through the ringer again. I think that has an effect on players, on the locker room. I really do.
Yeah, I mean that's just I mean it's the problem for playing for an organization like the Steelers, which is that I mean this team plays hardball with everybody. They played hardball with Cam Hayward last year too.
Yes,
right? Or was that 2 years ago?
But
right?
they didn't play hardball with DK Metcalf though. That's the point. That's
no, because when you're well that's the it's if you are a hometown guy, it's hardball to re-sign your own guys. It's the open market. Listen, I'm desperate to have you. I need to have you. I will pay you whatever you want. The guy who's here, we're playing hardball with you. I agree that it's a weird situation we put ourselves in the NFL, but I don't know that that's unique to Pittsburgh. I get your point about like TJ being like, hey, what the hell? I think probably what's more likely is that the Steelers are not offering him right now. I think the offer on the table is less than $40 million a year, so it would be less than Miles, which I think TJ is going to say, nope. I want, whether it's $41 million a year or 40 and a half, I want more than 40. And I think the Steelers are also probably structuring this contract in a way that they have decent outs after 2 seasons, maybe 3 seasons, to be able to get out of this thing and say, again, you'll go back to this guy's point about like, hey, TJ, you should be honorable. Like, listen, the Steelers are not being, I guarantee the Steelers are not being honorable here and giving TJ a guaranteed 5-year deal. Like, they're going to structure this deal, be like, hey, TJ, if you fall off a cliff in 2 years, like, so will your contract.
Yep.
They should front load it, in my opinion. I give TJ what he wants. He gets paid right up front, but also understand, like, dude, your numbers show a decline from last year. We need, this is going to be a 3-year deal.
Yeah.
And we're not going any further and just front load it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
he has every right to want what Myles Garrett got. The stats are comparable through their careers. I mean,
right.
What is TJ like? A year and a half older than Myles Garrett, or a year older than Myles Garrett. So it's not like it's considerably different. So he has every right to say
they came out in the same class.
Yeah.
So I think that, he is 1 year older, but like for a draft, like NFL experience, they're the exact same.
Yeah. Just remember, big pun coming back about this. If guys who sign these contracts for 4 years in football, they have to live up to the contract. They have to live up to the contract. But 2 years in, if you fall off a cliff and they cut you and they don't have to pay you those 2 years because they're not guaranteed.
Yeah.
It's not an honor thing in football. It's not.
Listen, I've already made enemies with Big Pun, so I'll just say this. Big Pun, your argument is complete bullshit. Like, you are arguing it one way only. Why is it that the player has to honor the contract, but the owner doesn't? Like, if we're going to live in this world where you have to be honorable when it comes to signing contracts, then I want to see you, Big Pun, on Twitter every day talking to Roger Goodell and tweeting at them that you need to have guaranteed contracts only in the NFL. Like, if it's about honor and all this, then make it honorable both ways. But the way the NFL set it up is that neither side of the player has to, because they can't get out of a contract, right? They can't cut themselves, but the owners can get out whenever they want. They structure these contracts to get out whenever they want. So the only thing the player can do then is to hold out. That's the only leverage they have. And if the idea is that the players should have no leverage, then it's kind of a fucked up situation, in my opinion.
Yeah. And this argument Relic makes that. If you're pointing the finger at TJ Watt why this team hasn't won playoff games, you're pointing the wrong. You're way off base. I mean, you've got about 4, 5, 6, 7 people, before you get to TJ Watt, why this team hasn't won playoff games. I mean, come on. Start with the head coach and work your way down before you get to TJ Watt.
Now, Big Pun does have a good point here, and you know what the difference is. And here's where you got to be honorable. If you fully guarantee the whole freaking contract, like the stupid ass Browns did, Deshaun Watson does have to live up to his word in his contract. He better not hold out, because he got all of his money, and he's going to get all of his money. If TJ was going to get all of his money, I'd be with you, man. I get it. And look, we're older guys. We like to yell at this guy and get off my lawn. And this is a good get off my lawn argument. I totally get where you're coming from. I just don't agree with it.
Has the team also not looked for every possible way to get out of the guaranteed contract, though? I mean, there was rumors all offseason that they were trying to get out of this Deshaun Watson contract. They were looking for injury clauses. They were looking for anything they could possibly find to get out of that contract. So, like, they were stupid for paying him what they did and giving up the trade compensation and all this stuff. Like, but let's not. They have a plethora of lawyers combing through that contract looking for one clause to not pay Deshaun Watson one more dime.
They were hoping like hell he got hurt away from the facility.
Yep.
But with him, it's like so many extenuating circumstances. I mean, he brought so much onto himself that I hate to say the ownership's justified to try to look to get out of that contract, but and with the massage stuff and everything else, I mean,
they knew about that before they signed.
Yeah, they did.
All that was out. That was.
It's hard to feel bad for the Browns ownership. You're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
You're right. That was the Browns being the Browns. They sold their franchise to go get a guy that they thought was going to take them one step further than Baker Mayfield, and he took them 4 steps backwards.
And in fairness, and I think it was stupid to do it, but in fairness, if they had got the Deshaun Watson sitting out a year from the Texans, this might have worked out.
Yeah.
But bottom line is he sat out for a year. He had all these allegations. And then you do this. It's the stupidest contract in NFL sports history.
Yeah.
It's worse than the Bobby Bonilla deal.
But going back to Dave's original point about like, hey, you know, you look at like DK immediately getting all this money, whereas other guys have to fight for it, right? Like Myles Garrett had to fight for his $40 million guy. He had to, you know, threaten like, I'm never going to play for you guys again. I want out. Then they give him the $40 million. There's a reason why no other team has given a fully guaranteed contract like this, like Watson got, because no quarterback of Watson's caliber ever gets to the open market. They never get close to the open market. So it is one of those things where like it's much better if you can find your way to free agency. That's the biggest payday you're ever going to get in your career. It just rarely happens for top tier players like that.
Vaughn's got a good question here.
Signing TJ to a
contract. Is that good business? It's probably not. I mean, and this is why I think maybe the Steelers are having a little reservation too. I mean, we're never seeing the TJ 18 sack TJ Watt again. That guy's gone.
I'm not 100% sold on.
I don't know if that's true.
His injury history scares me more than the performance. I still think the performance is based on coaching staff. They've hung this dude out to dry all last year, facing all these chips, all these double teams. You did not adjust even remotely at all. I mean, we're running close to an hour. I could go on my rant. I'm gonna hold back because I will. I rolled on for 40 minutes on this the other day.
I will tell you this: what frustrated the hell out of me last season. You know they're triple teaming him at this point. You know it, and finally, and look. In fairness, TJ didn't see a lot of double and triple teams when he was putting up those huge numbers for whatever reason, because they thought, hey, it's the Steelers. They can come off both sides. Well, now they adjusted because, hey, they're not going to do anything. This is where you needed a guy like Brian Flores would have saved TJ's ass last year because, hey, you want a double and triple team? Fine. I'm sending 4 guys off the other side. Good luck triple team and TJ. And within a game or two, they would have said, okay, no, we can't do this. This don't work.
Yeah. Or just send TJ on like a stunt inside. Like just make it not as obvious where, like what gap and where he's coming from on a play-to-play basis is another thing that just drives me nuts. Like move the guy around a little bit. Like let's have a little variety up front. Just got so one note with how, like, again, and you know, some people blame this on TJ himself because TJ does like to, you know, he is a one-note passer. He will say that about himself, right? Like he is a speed rush first guy, and some would say speed rush only.
I was going to say, do you think he pushes back because that's all he wants to do? Maybe he doesn't want to move around. That's what he's
best at.
Maybe he doesn't want to go. Yeah.
James Harrison talked about this his rookie year, right? Remember, TJ switched sides after his first year because that first year was not great for him. And Harrison said, like, look, you're playing this guy on the wrong side. Like he needs to play. He's way better on the other side. They did make the swap back then, and he's had like double-digit sacks basically every year since, and other than the year he was hurt. So, no, but I think there is something to be said for like, look, as a coaching staff, you have to look at what happened last year, especially at the end of last year, and say, okay, TJ, there's a big difference between 19, 20 sack TJ and the 11 and a half sack TJ we had last year. Right? People will say about last year's TJ season, like, oh, 11 and a half, that's not that bad. That's fine. Like, but anyone who actually watched TJ on a game by game basis, like he was just not the thing that drives me nuts about sack numbers in general is like people look at this number and say like, oh, was TJ only impactful on 19 plays? Like, no, TJ has been the reason 19 is the top line number, but there are so many plays that TJ was even more impactful in that didn't get like that aren't in that 19 number. Last year, to me, the 11 and a half sack almost felt inflated when it comes to like how truly impactful on a play-by-play basis was TJ Watt last season. Because I would make the argument that outside of his rookie season and outside of the year he was injured, last year was TJ's least impactful season as a player. Am I alone in that?
So, is that no? It's
No.
true. Now, is that him or is it the coaching?
Right.
Or is it a combination of both?
Yeah.
That's what they got to figure out. And because these guys are right. The Steelers do vanilla on defense. They just are.
Yeah.
They don't do any. They don't deviate from anything. We talked about this last podcast, Bob. Mike Tomlin wants to rush 4 and put 7 in coverage, and he wants to get home with 4. He doesn't want to take chances. He certainly doesn't want to do zero blitz. That's out of the question. But the more seasons go along, the less blitzing we see, the more risk averse Mike Tomlin is on defense. And maybe it is because of the offense, what Trent brought up before. But it's not Dick LeBeau defense anymore.
Look, even if you only want to bring 4, okay. TJ's drawing 3 guys. Okay. Take the other 3 guys, put 2 on the outside edge on the other side, and then stunt the inside guy up and around and just come after them. Okay, you want to
they don't do that stuff.
Team TJ, and you don't want to blitz, send 3 guys off the other side. I mean, it's not rocket science. Okay, you get burned running up the middle. I got news for you. You play that stupid four-man front with TJ and Alex, you get run on for 300 yards. So fuck it. If they're gonna pass, kill them.
No, I think it's a good. No, it's look, okay, because you guys have gotten on the Steelers about this first round draft pick being a D lineman because it's all about the Ravens and the run defense. But I do think there's a pass defense part of bringing in a guy like Derek Harmon, and that he is a good pass rusher too. And one of the points that has been made, which is we put all this on TJ because like yes, TJ is seeing more double teams than he's ever seen. He's seeing a chip on every single play. Like there's hardly ever a time in a game where TJ is getting truly one-on-one. That should, at the end of the day, open up opportunities, especially for the guys on the interior. And if there's been anyone who's been the most underperforming the past 2 years, to me, that's been Larry Ogunjobi. Like Larry Ogunjobi.
Oh, he's good God. Yes.
Yeah. Like
Jesus Christ.
The Derek Harmon pick to me is as much an admission that Larry Ogunjobi, especially more recently, has been an out-and-out failure, not as a run defender, as a pass defender, as a pass rusher, as anything it was about like the 300 yards they gave up against Baltimore on the ground. Like Derek Harmon could be a huge impact on the interior. Alongside TJ putting up these double-digit sacks, we've seen multiple times through Cam these last couple of years putting up big sack numbers for a similar reason, right? Like he's getting better one-on-one opportunities inside because of what's happening on the edge of this defense.
I feel like we're in the same damn argument this year that we were in last year with Cam Hayward. Like everybody's talking about, oh, you're paying for pass performance, paying for pass. You know what? Cam had injury, he had a down year, and he played so consistently every single season before that. TJ had one bad year. Name me the one other bad year he's had in the NFL. You're not going to find it. It's not in his resume. Sometimes guys can have a down year. You don't know what was bothering him. I mean, things that go unreported at times. And he was banged up, to be fair, too. And that's, like I said, it's fair to have the injury argument about TJ Watt, but the performance argument is absurd. He still was making some plays. He led the league in forced fumbles. He led the league in fumble recoveries. He wasn't doing a lot of the splash that we're used to seeing from TJ Watt. But at the same time, if you're going to just let this dude walk, I guarantee you Detroit wants him in that same room, and they're going to win a Super Bowl because this dude's going to be making plays all over the field with that guy in that room. Like you're going to regret it if you let him walk. So for that side of the fan base, I don't know.
Look, but if you could get Detroit to give up a first for him, which Detroit should because they are TJ Watt away from the Super Bowl, then hey, look, if the Rams were a TJ Watt away from the Super Bowl, the Rams they might offer 2 firsts for him. But look, I mean, and the other thing too with this TJ thing, we kind of talked about this last night. Stop playing Alex Highsmith and TJ together on obvious pass rushing downs. Alex is a great power rusher. I like Alex. I'm not saying get rid of him, but put Herbig on the other side. You want to triple team TJ? Let's see you get the other speed rusher then, because he's going to blow past most right tackles in the league, and he's going to be on the quarterback and make that splash if they're double teaming TJ. I want to see those two play together, and conversely, I want to see Alex and Jack Sawyer play together and power rush on certain downs. You want to, hey, I'm good against the run on second down. You want to drop back and pass? No problem. I got Alex and Jack who can still get home.
I don't mind mix and matching a little bit, but if it's a gotta have it moment, I want Alex and TJ out there. Obviously, you guys know I'm not as high on Herbig as you guys are, but if it's it's third down and they need it, I want Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt. I don't want, I wouldn't toy with that too much.
No, but I do want. I think what this team is gearing towards is not just like, well, we want TJ and Alex or TJ and Nick. We want the guys who are the freshest out there, right? Because at the end of the day, so often at times it's like TJ is just. How many times have we seen TJ just dying on the sideline at the end of one of these football games, right? You have to get him rest. I will kind of push back a little bit on the like, hey, you can. There's no reason to get rid of TJ. I'll steel man the argument, even though I don't believe it. I want to put that up front because I know I don't do podcasts very often. So like people are going to clip this like, Tony, it's TJ now. I'm steel manning an argument. I'm steel manning an argument that I don't necessarily all the way believe in. But I will say this. Look, the argument against signing TJ to any sort of long-term deal is that, yes, I agree. He had a down year and players can have down years. But it's when he had that down year and what kind of player he is. He's now going to be 31 as of like week 5 of this year. And he's also pretty much a speed rush and hustle type player. Like that's how he makes his money, right? He is a speed rush first, and then he will kind of hustle. That athleticism is going to deteriorate. Just Father Time dictates that is going to deteriorate over the lifetime of this contract. And so unless you believe that the Steelers are in any kind of window right now to win and win something important, the division, make a run in the playoffs, a Super Bowl, the argument would be like, look, you're throwing $40 million kind of out the window here because like ultimately, to Bob's point, if you were admitting you're in a rebuild, if you're admitting for the fact that, hey, we're kind of in this rebuild period now, then TJ should be on he should be on the trade market if the Steelers admitted where they were.
I know it's a steel man thing, but I kind of agree with that point. It's like you've got 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Are we rebuilding? Are we not rebuilding? But now now that you have Aaron Rodgers, you've kind of pigeonholed yourself. You got to have TJ Watt now, right? Because you're trying to make some kind of run in 25, whether it's just a playoff win or a little bit of a run.
Right. Now
Now that you've signed Aaron, you got to keep TJ.
Yeah, they're keeping TJ.
I can make the argument that they should have done neither and done a proper rebuild this year.
Yeah.
And you don't have to say, tank, but do a legitimate rebuild. Move on from TJ, get multiple first round picks, or at least one, and roll the dice with Mason Rudolph and hope, 7-9 gets you the 16th pick in the draft, and now you're in business. I mean, this half and half, 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yeah. Okay, but let me ask you this. Do you want to be because this is why I don't believe in it, right? This is why I don't believe my own little argument there. I don't know. Do you want to cheer for an organization that's that kind of cutthroat with like franchise marquee players, right? A guy who's been a Steeler guy through and through. Like at the end of the day,
Steelers have done this, Tony, throughout their history. They got rid of Troy Polamalu.
Yeah, but that was late. This is we're talking about Rod Woodson too. Is another one. Rod's the stupidest one they've ever done. But
yes,
what we're talking about today, TJ hasn't fallen off yet. We are projecting that there could be a fall off, right? Yeah. Like it's one down year, and now we're all saying get rid of him. Look, when Rod Woodson got let go, I think wasn't he into his 30s at that point? Although it was still pretty early. But like Polamalu was like 33 and very clearly had fallen off late. Like they pushed Ben out too. Like Ben talks about how he wanted to play another year, and they're like, no, thank you. So like, yeah, I mean, I agree. They will push people out late, but like not like this. This would be or TJ has some good years left.
Mhm.
If we are saying today that we want them to push out guys like this because all we want is a championship, I don't know. It does to me diminish who the Steelers are as an organization.
That's why I would structure this as a 3-year contract. I wouldn't go real far out. But you can still pay this guy on a 3-year contract where you front load a lot of it when you're going to be on, Aaron Rodgers is a cheap contract and we had leftover cap space in this year. Next year, you're still probably going to be on a rookie quarterback contract. So it's not going to crush the cap. And then you have an out on the 3rd year. That's how I would do it.
This is something I really believe in. It's better to get rid of a player a year too early than a year too late. Sure, we can sign TJ now, and maybe he's good and he probably will be good this year, and then he falls off a little bit next year. His value is never going to be higher than it is right now. So to me, you make the move now. You get the assets you want, and because I get your point, Trent, about this, but I caution using Cam Hayward as an example because he's such a unicorn. That never happens in football, where a 35-plus-year-old defensive player gets better. That almost never happens. Once you see the slide, it's usually a pretty consistent thing, slide down. It very rarely goes down and comes back up in your 30s.
Yeah.
It's really, to be honest, for me, for an older player, it's all about how you manage them. Look, there are guys who could be productive all the way into their 40s if you manage it correctly. Where you got to understand, like Cam Hayward, if he's playing 80% of the snaps, you're just saying, fuck you, we don't care. We're just counting on you to be a Pro Bowler. And why'd you fall off the table? Cam Hayward should be playing about 65% of the snaps especially with his motor. And that's
what did he play last year? Because I think he played a good amount of snaps and still played great.
I'm looking
at
that
great. And he played great. He's a unicorn.
And they should be doing the same thing for TJ, is backing him off. Look, you play so hard, but not when you're exhausted. We're going to keep you fresh throughout the game. We got guys who we know can play the position. They're not TJ Watt, but they can play. I mean, Herbig caused more fumbles than TJ per snap. I mean, yes, he's a little undersized. You use him correctly, I think that could really work.
I shared my screen here because I do have the snap counts pulled up for Cam Hayward. I do think this is interesting. They actually have, because I to the point of like, have they done a good job of managing snaps? Like if you look at Cam over time, this is defense here. Like it has really over the last, obviously he was hurt in one of these years, but like he went from a guy who was playing like 90% of snaps almost down to like, he's basically playing 70% of snaps. And honestly, if you look at who they brought in this offseason, would we be surprised if that number dips below 70 this year? I don't think we would, right?
No,
based on who's on the roster right now.
Yeah, it felt like he played a lot more than 70%, just from memory and eyeballing it, because it seemed like Cam was on the field all the time.
But this is important to me because this is the kind of thing that pisses me off when you get late into a season, which is that guys like Cam are just beat up. Guys like TJ are beat up. Like it's a constant theme at the end of a year. We get to these places where it's like, oh, right, this defense is just beat to shit at the end of the year. They're playing their worst football at the worst possible moment, which is right as this team gets into the playoffs. It's been a theme throughout this entire run. It at least is encouraging to me in some ways that like we have stats like this, that, okay, they are trying to at least manage this a little better. Even if, let's be quite honest, the results haven't changed much.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be interested. I mean, look, you got Keanu Benton. It's not, did he slide a little bit last year? Yeah, but I mean, they kind of have not let this guy get into a groove. He's not really a nose. Move him over a little bit.
Oh, he's a nose. Did you hear them? Yaya Black's not playing nose this year. So who else is left? It's just Keanu Benton.
Why would you not play Yaya Black on the nose?
I have no idea. It must be the lack of athletic ability that he has.
They've doubled down on it. And maybe after training camp and he proves that he can't play end, they move him to nose. But Dunbar said again today, he's not playing nose.
Yeah. That's silly. I wonder how much base did they even play last year, though. Hopefully, it's not a lot. Because God, I think that is really stupid. Of like,
It was it 30 low 30% of the time?
I think
Something
that,
like
that sounds right. That sounds right.
That
Around
can't-
low 30s.
can't-
The playoff game, it felt like 0.0.
well, the playoff
Yeah.
game, yeah. I mean, the playoff game is where it mattered, right? Like that's
Yeah.
you're just
Yeah,
getting blown
they
off the ball. play
outsmarted
after play.
themselves in that game. They tried to get too cute.
I do think though, and I said this last time. I'm not going to go on a rant again, but I will bring it up because it's just a thing I have to do every time. We are too much of that game is made of what happened with the defensive line, and not enough, in my opinion, is made of how the linebackers did in that game. Because I will say once again, Patrick Queen, not good.
Yeah. We talked about that last night. Is there a scenario if Cole Holcomb is Cole Holcomb from 2 years ago? Could you 3 or 4 games in see a scenario where it's Cole Holcomb and Peyton Wilson and Patrick Queen has lost his job?
Or at least rotate. I mean, I don't think there's no way PQ is going to lose his job because he is the green dot. So,
Even though he kind of hates it, right? I mean,
yeah. And look, people will point out like he had 130 tackles last year. I would again point out like where were those tackles on the field? But because by the way, he had 130 tackles. You know how many of them were for a loss? You know how many of those tackles were for a loss out of the 130? 6.
I don't.
Six.
I was gonna say I don't remember many. I don't
Six.
remember many.
Yeah.
I think it's more likely Holcomb and Peyton Wilson get hurt than them taking over the starting job from Queen. I mean,
I think Peyton Wilson's got to take a big step this year. I mean, reportedly he's a little bigger, and if he takes a big step, this defense could be really good. But it's going to be contingent upon Harmon being the guy we think he is, Peyton Wilson taking a step, Joey Porter taking a step. If those things happen all of a sudden,
it's a lot of ifs, Bobby.
There's some young guys who are pretty
and the wheels
good.
don't fall off. Cam Hayward and Darius Slay in their late 30s, and yeah, it's a lot of ifs.
Yeah, I mean that's been this team for a little while now, right? This team is full of if this happens, if Aaron Rodgers doesn't, can go back to anywhere close to MVP form, if this team could find a wide receiver too outside of Robert Woods.
I can't even believe we're doing this. I just can't believe we're going to do this for a third straight year.
We're not. They're going to get a guy. They're going to get a guy. They're going to.
That's what we said all last year, Bob. All last year, right up to the trade deadline when they got Mike Williams.
There's guys in free agency they can still get, but I still personally I think they're holding out for a trade for a guy who they can give a third for and get. You got 3/3. They're going to get somebody. If not, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, they're going to sign one of those guys.
I love the optimism, Bob, but I got to agree with Dave on this. Like, we did this for so long last year. I'm so beaten down by it that I'm like, maybe they are. Maybe we're quite literally just going to run it back with like one wide receiver and then a bunch of dudes.
I guarantee you the backup plan is for Aaron's guy. That's the backup plan. That's not the first line. But I guarantee if it gets down to it, they'll give up a fifth for Lazard.
Yeah. It just felt like we did this last year. Because remember, there were times last year it was like, okay, well, even if they don't get Ayuk, like they'll get one of the guys from, they'll trade for someone from Houston or Cortland Sutton. Like there were so many names bandied about.
Chatter.
Yeah. And then like even who's the guy who I think he ended up Tim Patrick. Oh, Tim Patrick gets cut by the Broncos.
Yeah.
All right, well that's okay. This deal was half to sign him. They let him go, right? For whatever reason, and whether it's an Arthur Smith thing, it's a Mike Tomlin thing, it's an Omar Khan thing, they have very, let's call them interesting ideas about wide receiver too in this organization. Because
that's such a nice way to put it.
Because they shot for the moon to get Brandon Ayuk. I mean, if this team had gotten Brandon Ayuk last year, and I understand he didn't have a great year and then he got hurt, but like whatever. Brandon Ayuk, the player, in my opinion, is like a rich man's version of Deontay Johnson, like an elite route runner, but maybe not as much of a head case. Man, that would have been that could have been a legitimately great wide receiver room. But then when they didn't get him, they just kind of settled for like, okay. I mean, I guess Van Jefferson and Mike Williams, and I just worry that we're going to get into a role where they just settle again on like Robert Woods and Calvin, and hope that a guy like Roman Wilson comes along.
I can't believe we're doing this again. I can't believe we're doing this again. It's the same mistake. They traded Deontay Johnson without a backup plan, and they traded, George Pickens without a backup plan. Sure, you have DK Metcalf, but trading Pickens puts you right back in the same spot you were in last year. You're in the same boat. You have one wide receiver and a bunch of nobodies. That you can't.
Well,
it's 2025. You can't do this.
I think the Pickens thing, though, here's how I compartmentalize the Pickens trade, in my opinion. I'm okay with it because it is the ultimate sign. If you needed a sign this offseason that this team cares far more about 2026 than they do about 2025, that this team is more invested in 26 than it is in 25, it's that trade, right? I mean, they traded away George Pickens for nothing this season. They're going to get a pick in 26 again. And for me, as I said before, like, I kind of don't give a shit about 25. Like, 26 is all that matters to me. So I'm okay with the Pickens trade because, yeah, like I said, I'm not invested in this season.
Look, if Roman Wilson comes along, that's great, and
Yep.
that's probably Plan A. That's what they're hoping. But I think it'll be pretty apparent once they put on the pads. And look, Green Bay can't keep all those guys. They can't. They're going to have to give one up. They're either going to have to cut one or trade one.
What if one gets hurt? They're going to wait till the end of training camp. They were not going to do anything till last roster cuts to protect themselves from injury. So you're waiting till at least, you don't have to start worrying. You don't have to start worrying until Keenan Allen signs, because then you're locked into Amari Cooper in free agency, and you got to go get him before training camp. Amari Cooper's done. He couldn't get it done with Buffalo. He's done. I mean,
but
if you're a free agent on June 9th, 10th, whatever day it is today, you're pretty much cooked. There's a reason you're still a free agent.
Keenan Allen's not cooked. He just doesn't want to go to mini camps.
Right.
There
are still the guys out there that are like
that. Don't want to go to mini camp. You're right. I guess I didn't think of that. You're right.
Yeah.
But Keenan Allen's not far from being cooked either. He had a pretty good season last year, but again, mid-30s, right?
Yeah, his game translates though. He's never been a speed guy.
And he's a slot receiver too, to put him with all the other slot receivers we have, and you're still not. I don't know.
Look, to Bob's point, there is something to just go into this season with a healthy Roman Wilson, another year of Calvin Austin. Like, see what you got out of these young guys, right? Like, again, on the idea of like not necessarily punting on 25, but like there is something to be said for go into this season with the young guys and give them as many reps as possible. Because at the end of the day, like if this team goes out and gets another receiver that they feel like they can start, that's going to mean less reps for a guy like Roman Wilson, right? That's going to mean that we're going to see like 20 catches from Roman Wilson this year, 10 catches from Roman Wilson this year. Like if he's buried at wide receiver 4 on this depth chart or wide receiver 5 on this depth chart, is that where we want to be?
Yeah.
No,
well, I mean,
it's so many mixed signals with this team. We're going to go with Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin, but we're going to sign Aaron Rodgers and Darius Slay. It's like
you're forgetting one important thing in the decision-making process. There is another voice now, because if you think Aaron Rodgers is going to tolerate subpar as far as the wide receivers go, he's not. He'll be vocal. If he thinks these guys can't get it done, he will speak up.
I guess.
Yeah.
Well,
or he's here to buy into the whole Tomlin thing of like, look, instead of having to be the leader, he's kind of more along for the ride of like, look, I'm going to kind of ride. You just know how to win these games. Like, you know how to get me. Like basically Aaron's thing is like, I'll play along. You get me to the playoffs and then I'll figure it out. Like, I'll be the reason why you go further, which in that case, you could see a more like tame Aaron Rodgers when it comes to this offense and like what he's looking for out of receivers early, right? He's kind of letting them kind of come along and figuring that out before the playoffs, but not necessarily as like, kicking guys off the team like he did for Mike Williams last year.
He's already doing it right now, comparing, Darnell Washington to Mercedes Lewis, and he's a great tight end and he could be something really special and this and that. And it's like, oh boy, have they brainwashed him already?
He blew so much smoke up the Steelers' ass during that press conference today. It was It wasn't. I mean, that was a veteran quarterback move right there.
It was an impressive performance for
It
sure.
was.
When I used
It
to see it in those
was.
kind of press conferences.
Yeah,
All right,
and
guys. All right, go ahead, Bob. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, I just think if it gets to the point where he doesn't feel like, hey, I can deal with this, but I think there is a possibility. Look, Roman Wilson put on some weight. He might be the guy.
Yeah, he even gave Connor Hayward a shout out today. That's how you know he's blowing smoke.
Exactly. Well,
mean,
and by the way, how much did that have to do with the fact that Cam called him out on the podcast?
Could be. Could have a lot to do with it.
I don't want to be conspiracy theory guy, but I will get the tinfoil hat out.
Trying to make good with Cam. It's not a bad idea.
Exactly.
It's not a bad strategy at all. If you're going to be in the Steelers. All right, guys, we've gone pretty long. We're almost at an hour and a half. Tony, thanks a lot for coming on again. We always appreciate it. You have an open invitation whenever you want to come on. Get something off your chest. You're always welcome. Again, the chat was fantastic, as it always is with us. We have a great group of guys, regulars that come on. We appreciate you guys. Like, subscribe. Don't forget about our new Ultra GM sponsor. I will be setting up the Steelers Sanctuary private league tomorrow. If you guys want in, let me know. It's pretty cool. Until next time, thanks for listening to Steelers Sanctuary Podcast. We'll talk to you next Thursday.
Rock and roll.
Trying to hit. David might have to hit it. I can't get there.
I got it.
Well, he's not weird or anything, is he?
No. No, he's totally normal.
I think you should be working at the snack bar. You better relax, Bob.
I mean, you know, normal for us.
All right, let's go. Now you've had enough.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
It jumped up a notch.
It did, didn't it?
Okay, crazy guy. I'm gonna go home now.